You're eating the chicken and rice, you're meal prepping on a Sunday, you're saying no to the beers, you're not having the takeaways, you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, but the scales won't move. Sat there thinking, what is going on? I'm eating healthier than I ever have done before and nothing's working. What's the fucking point? It's the truth most people won't tell you. Eating healthy and eating for fat loss are not the same thing. This is why so many guys stay stuck, because they're focusing on just eating clean foods, the healthy foods, cutting out all the bad foods, all the foods that the fitness influencers and the internet tells you should be eating, but still be eating too much of it. Who am I? Why should you listen to me? I'm Jordan, and over the last 4 years, I've been working in the coaching industry. I've worked with countless men who are stuck and frustrated, just like you, because they're doing everything right, yet nothing is working. And they've gone from being stuck out of shape to being in the best shape of their life, whilst living it at the same time. And I've made it my mission to help as many guys as possible experience this exact same thing so they can get in shape for life, not just for a holiday. And if you need any more proof, I'll leave my Instagram in the description below. Check it out. All of our client results and stories are on there for you to find. And I don't want you to think, oh, this guy doesn't know what I'm talking about. He doesn't get me. I've been through this myself. I've been stuck going around in cycles for years, going to the gym, eating healthy and looking the exact same. So trust me, I get it. I've experienced it firsthand and I've got the experience with the clients as well. In this video, we're going to be walking through exactly why your healthy diet might be keeping you stuck and exactly what to do to fix it. Here's what happens. You decide you want to lose a little bit of weight. You need to sort your shit out, not really feeling good in yourself, or maybe a holiday's been booked. So what's the first thing that everyone does? You clean up your diet. Of course you do. The crisps are out the window. The nuts come in on the food shop. You're swapping that weekend fry up for the eggs, avocado, and sourdough. You start cooking with olive oils instead of the standard oils which you're using. You even start eating overnight oats and start adding chia seeds in because you've seen that they're healthy. All the bad foods which you have on a day-to-day basis, they're gone. All the good ones are now in. And you feel better for it. You know, you're lighter on your feet, you don't feel as lazy, you've got more energy, the energy is more consistent throughout the day, and we're not having those afternoon crashes, you feel a little bit lighter, you're in a better mood. Of course you do, because you're giving your body what it needs. You're not having the processed shite, you're getting good quality nutrients into the body. But still, the scales aren't moving. Or it moves for the first week and you think, right, I've cracked it. But then it hits a little bit of a sticking point like it always does. And at that point in time, you start to panic. You know, you've stuck to things for 1 week and it's moved, and the second week it's not moving as much, but I've been really good and I've not changed anything. So what do? Week 2 comes around, you start cutting those calories even lower. You start ramping up the cardio hours, you start doing even more. Maybe you stop eating breakfast. You cut out carbs because they're bad, because you're in this panic mode that things aren't working anymore. Doing even more, yet you're making it harder for yourself. Here's what's actually happening, and I want you to really hear this. Now, all those healthy foods which you probably added into your diet, the olive oils, the nuts, the nut butters, the granolas, are all healthy, but they're some of the most calorie-dense foods on the planet. Let's take a handful of nuts, for example, 160 calories. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter can go upwards of 300 calories. A healthy smoothie in the morning, oats, peanut butter, milk, honey, protein powder, can easily be 800-900 calories. It's liquid, so you're probably gonna be hungry again in an hour. You could be eating 3 perfectly clean and healthy meals across the day and still be eating too much, but you won't know because you're not tracking. All you've done is said, I need to lose weight, so I'm gonna start eating healthy. And then assume that the rest will just take care of itself. And unfortunately, that isn't the case, even though I wish it would be. Let me give you 3 examples which I see all the time with clients, which crops them up and stops them from losing weight effectively. Number 1 is oils. Oils when cooking, it is just a subconscious habit that we've always done. A tablespoon of olive oil, around about 10 milliliters, which is absolutely minuscule, can be easily 100 to 120 calories. When was the last time you measured a tablespoon of olive oil? You don't, you just free pour it in. And that free pour could be 30, 40 milliliters. That could be 400, 500, 600 calories without you even realizing. When you're cooking your food, you have to use oil, of course, but imagine you're doing that, let's say twice a day, and you're just free pouring it, 300, 400 calories. You're doing that twice a day, 7 days a week. That's thousands of calories which you're going over without you realizing, because it's not an actual food and meal. I'm not saying don't use oil, just make sure it's tracked and factored into your calories. So what I always do, put the oil on a scale, set the scale to 0, pour a little bit in and see what the minus number is. I always try and aim for around about 10 grams when I'm cooking chicken or beef, and that makes sure it keeps the calories controlled, but I can still use those oils and get those healthy fats in when I'm cooking my food. Number 2 is nuts and nut butters. One of the easiest things to overconsume on because they're so calorie dense. Imagine when you're home from work, you're hungry, oh, you've got some nuts in the cupboard, they're healthy, you grab a handful of nuts. It's not a handful, it's the amount of nuts which can actually fill in your hand. It isn't a small handful, it's a large one. That can be easily 400, 500 calories, even from just a handful of nuts. A tablespoon of almond or peanut butter could easily be 200, 300 calories, but even though it doesn't seem like a lot, there's a lot of calories there. And when I first started tracking my calories, you don't realize how much of a humbling experience it is, because you start to realize, shit, I'm actually eating a lot more calories than I'm actually set. Handfuls here and there, coffees here and there. It's so easy to just subconsciously rack up your calories without realizing, because they're not actual meals which you're sitting down and eating. Maybe you've seen online that, you know, some people are making overnight oats, so you try it for yourself. You get the little jars out, you prep it for the week, you throw the oats in there, you throw the honey in there, the peanut butter, the milk, the protein powder. You're getting the granola on top. Every single ingredient in there is a health food and definitely belongs in your diet. It belongs in mine. But if you're not careful with the actual calories which are going into those overnight oats, you could easily be having 800-900 calories for breakfast before you've even left the house. And then you add the lunch and the dinner, and as we said, those hidden calories throughout the day on top of that, you can see how these calories start to stack and stack and stack and lead to you eating too much. Because it's clean and healthy food and you've changed your diet so much from what you were doing previously, your brain makes you think that it's okay and it doesn't count, but it does. Every single calorie counts, no matter what the food is, good or bad. And I'm not saying you should avoid these foods like the oats, the nut butters, the nuts, the olive oils at all, because they definitely do belong in your diet, especially if you're trying to lose weight. The point is, I know exactly what's going into every single meal with the exact quantities that I need to weigh out to make sure I'm under my calorie total with all these foods which I've mentioned included in my day-to-day diet, but it's tracked specifically based around my goals, my needs, and what I need to hit for every single meal to make sure I'm staying in a calorie deficit to lose fat. Now, just because they've got high calories doesn't then mean they're bad. I don't remove them from my diet just because they've got high calories. Just have to be conscious with how much I'm using and make sure I'm extra careful when I'm weighing those foods out, because I know how easy it can be to overconsume. So here's where the mindset shift is really going to happen for you. Understand this when it comes to losing weight. You can't cheat science. There is only one way to lose body fat, and I'm sure you've heard it plastered all over the internet that you can only lose body fat if you're in a calorie deficit, whereby you're consuming less than what your body burns on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't matter how clean your food is, it doesn't matter how healthy your diet is, if you're eating too much of it, you will gain weight and you will not lose body fat. And I think that's what really does confuse people with fat loss and eating healthy, that you can be doing everything right. You know, you start the meal preps, you start eating healthier, and then you get all confused that things aren't moving. And you know, you're looking at that and going, well, I've changed my diet around and I'm not losing body fat. What is actually happening? Like, am I actually broken? And it's like, no, but we're just consuming too much of those foods, which you should be eating, and we just need to taper it back. Because healthy and fat loss are two different things, right? Because you can eat healthy and maintain, you can eat healthy and build muscle, you can eat healthy and lose body fat. The goals may change and the calories will also need to change with that. Variable isn't the quality of food, it's the quantity. And I want you to remind yourself of that at all times. You could effectively eat whatever you want on a day-to-day basis. You could eat loads of chocolate bars, be within a deficit and still lose body fat. You'd be absolutely fucking starving, but it's completely possible. And that almost disassociates foods with being good and bad, and people think they have to restrict loads of foods, and you don't. It's just understanding on your diet that some calories come from really calorie dense food, and some are just going to give you much more bang for your buck and actually keep you fuller for longer, helping you achieve your goal. Just as a bit of a side note in terms of these like 3 things that crop up, one of the things I've always seen, and you know, clients coming to me with previous dieting experience and what they've done in the past, they always chase crash diets. That they get in shape for a holiday, they slash their calories super low from the start, their cardio goes stupidly high from the off, and they can only sustain it for a couple of weeks. And then they have that association with fat losses. That's really hard, and that's really tough when they're just starting it wrong, because the goal of fat loss is to see it as a toolbox, okay? In your toolbox, you have your steps, you have your cardio, and you have your calories. The goal is to start the fat loss phase with as much tools in the toolbox as possible. And when you go through the fat loss phase and you're sticking to your calories 100%, like accounting for these hidden bits and bobs here and there, and things aren't moving. So let's say your body weight doesn't move by 0.5% in a week. Let's say it comes less and you've been 100% on it. At that point in time, you then start to use those tools. Maybe you want to increase your cardio by 10-15%. Maybe you pull your calories down by 10-15%, depending on what you can handle in your life and your time commitments. But what people do is they almost chase those changes and think, I need to change. But soon enough, you get to an unsustainable spot and it just doesn't work. The goal is always to get the most out of the least, and more doesn't always equal better if we can't sustain it. Right, so what do we actually do about this? How are we gonna fix this? How are we gonna start losing weight? How are we gonna start losing weight consistently now? What I want you to do is, the first port of call is track your calories. 100% for a week, 7 days, okay? Just to collect the data, not to become obsessive, not to become, oh my God, such a calorie freak. No, it's just so you can understand and gauge, shit, how much calories am I actually consuming? So everything that passes your mouth for 7 days straight, I want you to input it and note it down into MyFitnessPal. Because that way you're going to be able to see, right, that's actually the true amount of calories. It doesn't matter if you're over consuming and you're having snacks and you're having these olive oils, etc. Just weigh everything out. Like, it doesn't have to be a perfect diet over the week. Live normally. It will be a bit weird that now you're tracking, you have to be a bit more conscious, and that's normal, but try to keep it as normal as possible. If you do have a handful, just grab a handful and then weigh it out and then input it, because that's going to give you the most accurate data for you to understand how many calories you're consuming, and then make changes based on the data you collect. Now, identify the biggest offenders. For me personally, the best thing that I do when I'm trying to lose body fat is just don't buy it. I believe that if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And people say to me, well, I don't enjoy that. I want some enjoyment. And I don't sit here and think that I'm not allowed chocolate. I just make it easy for myself that on a fat loss phase, I know that if that's in my cupboards, I'll be more likely inclined to actually, when I'm hungry, grab something that's quick and easy. That gets a big dopamine hit. That then leads to me over consuming. So for the period where I'm dieting, I'll personally cut it out. But for you, for example, you may just start having less of it. So instead of just free flowing it and just eating it, you might just start weighing it out and factor it into your calories. And that's a good way to actually keep those foods in while still achieving your goals and losing body fat. Instead of just tracking based on eye and just filling your bowls and meals with healthy foods, just put the scales underneath. Measure that food out so you know exactly what's going in and the amount of calories which you're consuming. Number 3 is make sure your protein intake is quite high. Protein is the most satiating macronutrient, so that's going to keep you full. And when you're losing weight as well, we don't want to lose weight if you've got some muscle under there. Protein intake is actually going to help you protect the muscle mass when you're dropping body fat. So if protein intake is nice and high, that's going to make sure you're getting adequate protein to actually preserve your muscle mass when you're in a calorie deficit, which can create a bit of a catabolic state. If we're in that catabolic state where muscle breakdown can occur, then we run the risk of losing muscle mass as we go through that fat loss phase. So always make sure around about 0.7 grams to around about 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. If you have a bit of stomach issues and your stomach's quite sensitive, I would go on the 0.7 and build that tolerance up. But if you have no issues with digesting proteins, I would go to that 1 to maybe even 1.2 grams per pound of body weight if your body can handle it and you don't encounter any stomach issues. Always think protein first. Fill the plate with protein first. That should take up the majority of your meal in terms of your plate, then your veg, and then your carbohydrates. And if you're someone who travels for work or eats out frequently with their partner or their friends, like most of our clients do, it's really important to make conscious decisions. The amount of people that just use eating out as a free-for-all and just choose everything, I like to go pick 2 out of the 4. So you've got starter, main, dessert, alcohol, pick 2 out of the 4 and make conscious decisions. Think about it in terms of, right, okay, where's the protein? That's going to be grilled, not fried. And you can start to make a bit more conscious decisions rather than just think it's a free-for-all. And that's going to help you still eat out, still live your life at the same time, but still achieve your goals without taking it too far. From these simple changes and these simple tweaks, it's more often than not that we don't need to cut calories. We don't need to increase cardio. We just need to tighten what we're currently doing. When clients come into us and they're already eating healthy and they're not losing weight, we start tidying up their diet and actually educating around these things. In the first 1 to 2 weeks, we actually get them eating more food because they're coming from an environment of just slashing their calories super low. We give the body the actual fuel it needs. We give it the right amount of food. We tighten up all these areas and people lose, in the first 1 to 2 weeks consistently. And we've seen ridiculous changes in just a couple of weeks. I'm not saying it's going to be a quick fix like that, but we're seeing the change whereby previously on their own, they've been stuck for years and they start to see these changes in a couple of weeks, which they've been stuck at for so long. If you've been eating healthy and you're not losing weight, what do you know? You're not broken. Your metabolism isn't broken. You can lose body fat. You're just eating more than you think. And it is as simple a fix as that. And I'm here to tell you, you don't need to cut your carbs out because they're bad, because they're not. You don't need to do hours of Stairmaster. You don't need to hate your life when you're dieting either. You just need to know what's going into your body. The specific amount of calories you're consuming on a day-to-day basis is what you need to know. And that's all you need to know when it comes to fat loss and nutrition. Make small adjustments and stay consistent. As I said, 9 times out of 10, it's not the calories, it's not the cardio, it's the ability to stick to the plan. If you're eating 1,800 calories, but then over-consuming with handfuls, you're not eating 1,800 calories. Focus on hitting those calorie targets first, collect the data, and make adjustments from that. But if you're not sticking to it, always go back to that before jumping to make changes, because as I said, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot, we're going to make it harder for ourselves, we're not going to be able to sustain it, we're going to fall off, and we're going to stay in that cycle of just losing and gaining the same weight, and we don't want that. We want to break that cycle. But that's it. That's the game of fat loss. That's why eating healthy doesn't equal fat loss, and they're 2 different things, and you need to be aware of these hidden things which crop up across your week to make sure that you can actually lose fat effectively. Get it done, get it over with, make it quick, and then you can get stuck into building muscle, which is so important when it comes to actually developing, building your physique, and actually staying and living in shape. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll get back to them all below. I'm very active on Instagram. As I said, I'll leave the link in the description for you to go and check that out. Please like and subscribe. It does help the channels quite a lot. And there's going to be a lot more education content coming. So keep your eyes peeled and I'll see you in the next one.